Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are here to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 2, Episode 3. It is called The Siege. So, full spoilers for the episode. As always, this is the end of the opening three-parter. We've set up this situation where the Bajoran military are coming to the station and they're evacuating all the non-Bajorans, although to be honest, by the end of it, they seem to have evacuated most of the Bajorans as well. And they're waiting for the military to get there. Meanwhile, they send Kira and Dax with the evidence that the Cardassians are the ones that are actually giving the Circle their weapons to... Well, they have to go on a bit of a hunt to find a ship to hopefully get to Bajor to deliver the evidence, and hopefully that'll wrap everything up. But the others on the station have to bide time and kind of hide and sneak around the Bajoran military. Warfare. Yeah. So... that is the gist of it. The first chunk of the episode is very much kind of like try to set up how much of a big deal it is by having everyone say goodbye to people who are leaving. O'Brien with his family. Quark tries to make some money off of things. We'll get to that.
Jake and Nog have a little moment.
Yeah, which was actually kind of sweet, honestly.
Yeah.
That was a nice little bit. This idea that they're worried they're not going to see each other again, and Nog reassuring Jake that, nah, I mean, if we can be friends despite the fact that no two people of our, differing species has ever had a friendship. Why should a little thing like distance, get in the way? So, yeah, that was a nice little thing. But yeah, so it's the military dude that we met in Bajor last episode, or episode 1, whatever episode that scene was in. With it was a really good scene with Sisko and this military guy. So
it was the last one, yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of this, the siege?
Yeah, I think it's still pretty strong. It kind of continues, like I say, exactly where we left off, and I think the quality is pretty much on par with that. I think the only real surprise I had was that by the end it's not quite as resolved as a quote unquote 3-parter would have led me to believe it would have been. It kind of just like it gets to the end and it's like, oh, this is not even close to done.
No, and I don't think I'm as surprised, just because I expected the show to be more serialized. So I guess in a sense it is a 3-parter, but I think I even said last time it wouldn't surprise me if the 4th episode still just kind of feels like part 4.
I think calling it a 3-parter is almost misleading because, like I said, by the end of this feels no different to the end of the previous 2 episodes, with the one exception that it wraps up the arc of Leonalis.
Yeah, and the siege itself is over. Yeah. So there's some status quo, but they're still clearly investigating things. Jarrow, the one behind the Circle in Bajor, he's still he's not the investigation into the fact that the Cardassians are supplying the Circle starts by the end of this episode, but he
kind of just walks out and is like, yep, you guys look into it, and then vanishes conveniently.
His wording was very specific. I thought was obviously I approve of this investigation and plan to cooperate. I'm like, this. I feel like I've heard a lot of dodgy people say that whenever they get found out about something. That seems to always come up. Yeah, so I think, and that said though, when I say that, I could also see it being a case of we don't come back to this for 3 or 4 episodes. We might have a few standalone stories first, and then we'll bring back in this. Yeah. That would also be kind of expected. If anything, it's probably the more likely than just having episode 4 be the one that deals with it. So. I enjoyed all this stuff. I think giving Dax and Kira this little sort of, I say side mission, it's actually the most important part of the whole thing, is them getting to the appropriate people on Bajor and delivering this evidence, because they know that once everyone figures out that the Cardassians are behind this and want this to happen, that almost everyone supporting the Circle, and even people in the Circle, will instantly do a 180. Namely, what's her face? The potential new Kai. I'm forgetting her name. She obviously is she's colludiling with Jarrow. She's like, yes, I'm going to be the new Kai. Ha ha ha. I'm all this thing. But she's smart enough to be like, at any point I could go against him without, the second there's a whiff that he's going to not get the success.
Oh, she's out.
Yeah. She's jumping on the bandwagon of let's investigate this. Let's put Jarrow down. He needs to be dealt with. So But I think it is important for us as the audience going forward that she was ready to be in bed with him immediately, and it's only because she's been savvy and protecting herself that she's not. But we know she's capable of supporting this kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. I feel really similarly as well about the military guy, in that he was all on, like, yes, siege. Let's do this. Let's do exactly what we got to do. And we spoke last episode when we had that one-on-one scene with him and Sisko as to, it really played it ambiguously as to which way his loyalties lay. And I think it still follows that here, where he's all in with the circle here, in theory. But also, is he, or is it just, this is what the provisional government is now, and he's just following whatever the government happens to be, essentially. And as soon as it gets to the end, and there's even a possibility that, oh hey, Cardassians are involved, he stops, he calls it off, and gives the station straight back to Sisko.
I mean, he gets mad at you second in command because Sisko said over, they do a little trick where they trap a few of the officers of the Bajoran military in one of the holo suites, and which, by the way, these guys are idiots for falling for this. It's a holo suite, and they come in and they're surprised that the Sisko stand and there's actually just a hologram. Like, what, guys, come on, like this is 101 here.
Well, I'm sure that during decades of occupation on their planet, they probably didn't have a lot of time for holo suites.
Maybe. But Sisko says, hey, we've got evidence that says that the Cardassians are behind this, obviously wanting him to pass it, because he beams the second in command who's with this group back to the command deck to talk to his superior, to talk to the general, and just leaves the others in the room, which clearly makes me think Sisko wants him to pass on this information to tell him what he said. And so when they eventually get a hold of the general later on, and they explain this to him, it happens mostly off camera. We see him just kind of walk in and they're holding him at gunpoint and say, hey. And then next time we see him, he's like ready to slap the shit out of his second in command for not telling him what they told him. And the guy's like, they're just lies. They're Federation lies. Like, he's ready to just disbelieve anything that's presented to him. But I think that scene with Sisko last episode clearly told me this guy is like, he can be reasoned with. He's more sensible. He's following his orders because this is the orders he's got. And maybe in some level he does believe in a strong Bajor and he does want to not have outsiders, but he's not necessarily a complete xenophobe either. And because I think Sisko definitely earned a little bit of respect from him from the way he handled himself last episode. And I think even more so at the end of this episode, now he even, because he makes the choice, because I presume eventually the provisional government will say, yeah, things should go back to the way they were in Deep Space Nine. But
he just takes that initiative and withdraws, well before that order's given.
Yeah, he's just like, no, that it makes sense that you should be back in charge. You should be back in command of this station. And, the episode ends by letting us know things are, at least from a TV show perspective, are back to the status quo because everyone comes back. Jake comes back. All that. Back. So all that stuff is all solid enough. And it is fun seeing them hide in the tunnels. O'Brien's done what he can to make sure they can't scan the station for a while so they can sneak around. There's some fun little bits here where O'Brien's got them all supplies to eat, and Sisko points out, you could have literally had the replicators give us anything, and you chose military rations. And O'Brien just is kind of quirky and just likes them. He thinks they're great. It's the one thing he misses about being on the front line of the war back in the day. And this was a war that we had referenced in Next Gen that he was a part of, a decade or whatever ago. But obviously these are advanced rations because we're in Star Trek, and they're like, no, you eat one of these and you're good for 3 days because it releases the nutrients over time so that you're good for a while, and everyone else is miserable because they don't think it's just a block of matter. it's not really food. It's
sci-fi lembas bread.
Very good. Yeah. So Bashir's not very happy about it. Quark's not happy about it, and Quark he's not happy in
Quark
general.
And Bashir is a great pairing.
It's fun, yeah. I mean, Bashir
Quark
even drops
everyone.
a "your mother" joke on Quark.
Yeah, and he does not take it well.
Apparently, yeah. The Ferengi do not enjoy "your mother" jokes.
Rule of acquisition number 31.
Because he's dragging his box of, and it's clearly heavy, so I'm thinking this is his gold plus platinum that he's lugging around with him.
Yeah.
And Bashir says, just leave that behind. Is it that important? He's like, yes, I've got my heirlooms in here, my family trinkets, I've got important things. And Bashir's like, it's your gold plus latinum, and you know it. And I can just imagine him opening this box, and it is just stacks of gold place latinum. It's just these bars and nothing else.
100% is, yeah.
And he's like, how do you know that? Who told you? It's as if someone spread and told him your secret. And he's like, your mother did on the day you were born. And the way Quark like crawls towards him,
gets in his face.
But he's in the tunnel, so he can't be. He's not on these legs. He's on all fours, so he sort of crawls towards him like all of us. It's like a cat who's like smelled some tuna or something.
He goes full Gollum.
Yeah, he just sneaks up towards him. He's like, "You never talk about a Ferengi's mother." Like, and Bashir, to his credit, doesn't back down, which just makes it funnier. Like, it's this like strained dispute between them that's just, I don't know, it's really good. Quark's whole thing this episode, he tries to sell seats on the evacuation ships, despite the fact that he obviously has no ownership of said seats.
Yep, that doesn't stop him though.
And this very quickly leads to too many people showing up at the gates. And when Odo brings in Quark to the command deck, Sisko, because he's dealing with a siege, he's dealing with serious things right now. This is not a time for fun and games. He just grabs Quark by the neck and says, "What did you do? Like, I don't have time for your bullshit. I don't have time for you talking your way out of things. I am going to snap your goddamn neck. Tell me right now what you did." And he's like, "I might have overbooked the ships a little bit." And this was good because it was funny, but it was also good because it was showing that when times are serious, Sisko's not going to like pussyfoot around with Quark's nonsense. He's going to get to the point.
And also, Quark is peak capitalist.
He is peak capitalist, and he makes Odo. He still thinks he's leaving at this point before he realizes that his brothers sold his seat. Yeah, which actually, even that scene earlier on when he's like telling him, "Hey, we should sell seats," and his brother just thinks that he's talking about his seat, and he's like, "Brother, do you really think I would put your life in jeopardy for some commercial gain?" And his brother just starts nodding, and I started laughing. He's like, "It would have to be a very, very once in a lifetime deal." And then his brother hits back with immediately, "Yeah, it's my lifetime."
Yeah, that got me good.
That was a good line. Yeah, all of this stuff was great. Quark was, because it's a very serious episode, so Quark's like injections of humor like sprinkled throughout definitely was a nice palate cleanser just to break up the tension. It all played true to his character, but even he kind of incurs a sweet moment where Odo he's like, "Odo, admit it, you'll miss me." And obviously Odo says, I'll miss you being a pain in the ass. I'll miss all the illegal shit you do and all the conniving." But the way Quark sort of goes down the elevator with a smile on his face, like, he still said it. And Odo just has a moment of like, I can't believe he made me say that.
The other moment as well, when Sisko goes off to deal with the crowd, and Quark turns to us like, "I'm sure Commander Sisko, I have complete faith in his abilities to sort this out." And I was like, I'm glad. I'll pass that on to him.
That you have complete confidence in his abilities.
Yeah.
You'll be thrilled to hear that. Yeah. No. Everything from Quark this episode was very entertaining, which was nice because all the other stuff was working really well. All the serious stakes were there, and it it felt like a big deal that they evacuated the station and our regular crew were sneaking around and being all tactical. When the Bajoran military arrive and it's like the promenade's empty, it's like, they didn't explain, they didn't tell the audience this was going to be the plan. They just kind of were building up to their arrival, and then it's like, we're dropped in the deep end. And then we get the reveal that they're in the ducts and they're going around all the shafts and stuff and sneaking about. So yeah, that was all good. So that stuff was fun. Dax and Kira, they get dropped off by one of the evacuation ships on a moon because what's his name? Lee thinks that there might still be some shuttles there that his military teams like sort of hid there back in the day. So it's been a while, so it's maybe a bit of a shit pile of junk, but it might fly. So Dax goes because one of her previous hosts was
like a second host.
Yeah, was good with these types of engines or something like that. So yeah. Although she does comment that he didn't have much of a sex life, and I almost felt like a little bit of disdain in the voice. It was like, I had to like put up with the fact that he didn't have much of a sex life.
It definitely did feel very like, that chump.
Which is interesting in a weird way. It does show that the hosts do have a an impact on how the Trill gets to live for that period of time. They don't just like become the Trill's personality. It is very much a marriage of who that person actually is. So it's not like because Dax the Trill is a bit of a, well, I can't even just there's no word for like good with the opposite sex that applies to both, because Dax can be either. So I don't know what to call it, but a ladies' man slash
a player.
Yeah, that kind of works for both, I suppose. Yeah. But
it's not perfect, but it'll do.
Yeah, there's no good term for it. But anyway, they go down and get this ship up and running. There's a bit of a dogfight when they're coming back into Bajor, and some of the Bajoran ships are fighting against them. It's all simple enough stuff, but it's kind of fun because it's just like a little update with them every now and then to make all the stuff of like everyone on the station having to wait for them to get to their destination. It builds that kind of like, not ticking time bomb per se, but it's kind of similar in the effect.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So, yeah, they do have a bit of a nasty landing though. They have to crash after they get hit. Kira's a little injured, and they kind of go a bit again with this possible romance between her and the other Vadik Farrell, who picks her up, and they have like a little moment where they're close. Maybe there's a kiss.
Definitely feels like there's something that's going to be explored over the season.
Yeah. Obviously, there wasn't a kiss. I mean, but in the moment, there was maybe going to be a kiss. So they were kind of close to each other, and she kind of backs off a little bit. But yeah, basically they disguise themselves as religious Bajorans and go into the council and drop the evidence, which we already mentioned very quickly. It just kind of puts a halt to everything. I mean, Jarrow does try to say it's just outrageous for a minute, but as soon as everyone else takes it seriously, he has to very quickly be like, oh yes, of course I'll let the yes, of course, yes, the investigation must happen, yes.
And it's obviously it's interesting because we were definitely under the impression that he has no idea that the Cardassians are involved.
Yeah.
So he, in theory, would want to know as well, even if it proves him wrong. Like it kind of undermines him right now. He still doesn't want the Cardassians back either.
No, I think my read on this moment is that, one, he obviously doesn't want to believe it, but maybe deep down, if it's true, he would rather they just didn't know and he can still get in power. Maybe he's got some arrogance to think, okay, even if they are behind it,
does he think he can take the Cardassians under a united Bajor under him? He
thinks he's going to be such a good leader that even if it's true, it doesn't matter. Like,
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Because there was a scene earlier on where him and Vadik, Wynn is her name, I forgot her name earlier, when they were talking, and they're like, yes, Bajor's been waiting for a leader like me, a leader like us. And they're really propping themselves up, really, smelling their own farts and enjoying it. So, yeah, I mean, you can do it maybe a couple of ways, like his reaction in the moment, but very, very curious. Like, it's almost like it's almost like a sunk cost fallacy. Well, we've come this far now, I'm not backing down. So if they are behind it, we'll deal with that later. That's tomorrow's problem, and today I get to be in charge. That's today's problem. It
feel like he is like 30 seconds away from being officially in charge of everything, and he's like, I don't want anything to undermine this, even if it is true.
Yeah. But of course, everyone else has I think that's why it's so good that we get the different reactions. Obviously, Vadik Wynn is a conniving bitch, basically. So she quickly jumps on it because she's just being very tactical to save her own skin, because she can see that the ship's going to sink. Whereas the military general, it feels more like he's doing it because he believes in it, and it's the right thing to back down now, because yes, he believes in not working with the Cardassians. He's doing it more out of a sense of honor and duty or logic even, whereas Wynn is, no, it's very tactical, it's very strategic and
very selfish.
Yes,
comparatively.
But absolutely. So seeing those different, and it was one of the things we've been praising, especially these last few episodes, is really giving us these different types of Bajorans who believe different things. We're getting the conflicts from within Bajor, and that doesn't seem like it's something that's going to let up anytime soon. So, yeah. Obviously, we have to talk about Lee Nalis's death, which, do you know what's funny, is right before it happened, I was thinking, yeah, maybe I was wrong, because we're right near the end of the episode, and he's not snuffed it yet, and it didn't feel like he was in any danger, and then it was the military guy's second in command who wasn't happy that we're backing down, and is like, oh, okay, here it is, here it's coming.
Yeah.
he pulls out his phaser, and Nallis jumps in front of it. I do think it's interesting, though, because there's a conversation with Nallis and Cisco earlier on, which is even referenced here. He references it with these dying words, that he's kind of okay to die for Bajor, and Cisco says, but that lets you off the hook, and maybe what the Bajorans need right now is for you to live for Bajor and take the tougher job. And I thought that clouded his death later on, kind of in a fascinating way, where it was like, in some level, was this like, I'm sure he wanted to save Cisco. I'm not doubting that he did want to save him, and that he, you know, it was a heroic act for sure as a baseline. But in some level, as he's dying, and he says it's off the hook after all, like, is he actually kind of happy that he gets to be a martyr instead of actually have to stay here and make the decisions and run the show?
Maybe. And it's really interesting because I think it's during this episode that he finally steps up. He has that scene where there's the crowd at the ships, where he's the one that comes out and gives a bit of a speech and calms everyone down and gets them all, you know, back in line, and, you know, just stop being just a riotous crowd, you know, and become, you know, organized Bajorans again.
It kind of makes his death a little bit tragic in the sense that he kind of proved that he could be that, even just for a moment.
Even if he didn't want to be, like, he was capable of it.
Yeah, so it was this reluctant thing, but sometimes the reluctant leaders are the ones that are the best at the job because they take it more seriously, because it is this burden. It's not something they're doing because they saw themselves as a great, you know, dictator or like whatever. It's not for the showmanship of it. And it does make it a bit more tragic. But I thought that conversation like made this, because we were predicting, oh, he's probably dead at the end of episode 3. We were saying that from episode 1. And I think this made it a more interesting death, because it wasn't just that he died. It was like, oh, there's kind of a tragedy here that maybe he could have been what they wanted, but in some way he let himself off the hook by letting himself be killed. And
yeah. And obviously we have that little scene afterwards with O'Brien and Cisco essentially confirming that he is just a martyr now for the people, and this is how he'll always be remembered, as like the perfect Bajoran, essentially. Yeah,
because O'Brien's basically, he's just trying to like talk about, he's like, hey, they keep talking about him like he's this great guy, but honestly, from spending time around him, he wasn't this special person. And Cisco doesn't
insult him way either, just like, he was just a pretty normal dude.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to insult him, but Cisco, you know, doesn't necessarily disagree with what O'Brien's saying. He just sort of emphasizes, no, it's important that he's remembered now as this. Like, this is, you know, he was a hero, he did heroic things, he made sacrifices, and it's important he be remembered that way. And it's just, O'Brien gets the message, you know, like, he still clearly thinks what he was thinking, but he's like, understood, and that's...
Yeah, and obviously Cisco agrees with O'Brien ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Cisco, it's very important the way he phrasing it is, if I'm asked, he was a hero.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's not about whether, you know, what his opinion is. It's just, if anyone asks him, the story, the official line, that's what he will say, and that's what matters.
And I think that is just an incredibly nuanced thing, because he's basically saying that this is the story. Even with us just sitting here as a pair, we're still going to talk like that, just in case anyone hears us, just in case, you know, we don't want it to get out that he was anything less than that. And it just makes it a little bit more interesting that we get from the character that he knows the truth, but he also understands why it's important to propagate this story and keep that alive. And it's not a complete lie. It's not like it's the polar opposite. It's not like he was some scumbag. It's just, you know, it's just elevating him a bit beyond what he actually was, because that's what, like, it's the best. Like, it would have been better if he was alive and he could be the voice piece that he wanted him to be, that they all wanted him to be, and clearly that was the potential that was there. But since he has died, the best we can do is make a true martyr out of him and make him be a name that inspires other Bajorans. So
there's a really interesting part of it as well that's a little bit cynical from Cisco's point of view, in a good way for me as well. Like, because this isn't what Lee Nallis would have wanted. He just wanted to be a normal guy, right? And he didn't even necessarily want to be a martyr and remembered this way. He just wanted to be himself. But it's Cisco's like, no, they need you to be this. And, you know, he was the one always pushing him to be better anyway. And then now it's, you know, kind of doesn't matter what the dead man wanted. You know, whatever his wishes were, this is what we're going with, because this is what, you know, the planet needs, as opposed to whatever whatever he actually wanted.
Yeah, I don't think an Alice would be. I don't think he's against the idea of being a martyr after he's dead. I think that conversation earlier on basically kind of says that he's kind of cool with that. Like, he's dead, so what does he care at that point? But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Everyone was pushing him to be this thing, and that's what he can. It's like he's off the hook, so he can just go back to being the legend again, which is what he was before. Everyone thought he was dead. When Kira went and found him, it was a surprise to everyone that he was still alive. So he's kind of just back to the same statuses that he was before. A week ago, this is what everyone thought, and now he's back to being that.
He's probably more legendary now because he survived years in this prison camp, and all this extra stuff that he went through probably adds to the legend. And
maybe it even helps that he was, he's seen as this legend, but he died saving someone from the Federation. He died saving a non-Bajoran. Now, you can maybe see how some people in Bajor might twist that to be like, oh, he lost his way at the end, or he wasn't the hero we all thought he was because he put someone else first. But that might also inspire a more...
I think alternatively, if looking, from the spin doctors that are doing this story, the other ones are going to point out, well, he died for this relationship. Yeah, that's, if the best of us believed in this partnership, then maybe we all should.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to take from this, which I think is going to be great going forward. And just a little note, actually, there's a scene at the start where Sisko's basically saying that he's staying and that he's overseeing the evacuation and the official orders are to leave. But everyone on the crew volunteers to stay. Very quickly, O'Brien's like, oh, well, it's going to take some time to calibrate things. And Bashir's
there's a lot of different excuses.
Yeah, my medical supplies are going to take ages to pack. I'm going to be here for a while anyway, sir. You might as well. I think, obviously, that's a nice little bit that they're all choosing to stay. But I appreciate that before that, Sisko points out that one of the crew is engaged to a Bajoran because they've been living here a year and someone's, fallen in love and they're going to get married to someone from Bajor. And then someone else's kid's like a friend to a Bajoran kid, and they've got a science project together, which, makes sense because Sisko's own son is befriended, not a Bajoran, but someone else from a different race.
Yeah, they've got that one mixed school class.
Yeah. So I do appreciate this idea that he says, okay, obviously in a general sense, Starfleet, the Federation, we're all about, connecting with new races, new civilizations, being one connected system, right? That's the whole point, right, of Starfleet. But I do appreciate that here, for us who have been living here for a year now, that we've actually made personal connections, so we care more than the rest of Starfleet do about these people. We have friends that are Bajoran now. We have loved ones who are Bajoran. We are more invested because we've been here, and we now see this as kind of our fight to some extent, in a way that the rest of Starfleet, as much as the intentions across the board are always very altruistic from Starfleet, we care more because we've been here and we're connected to it now. And I kind of like that because it was like, okay, going forward, the contradictions or the differences between what Sisko and the people on the station want to do for Bajor and what they decide to do in moments of crisis, and how that differs from what Starfleet are saying the orders are. There's always going to be this thing where it's not just because they see themselves as, we know better because we're here. It's no, they care more because they're here. They're more attached to these people.
It's really interesting from a media critique side of it as well. It tells me that the writers, they understand stakes a little bit better than maybe other writers of a lot of things do. How often have we complained about how, it's a big light in the sky and the city's in danger, but we don't care because we don't know anyone in it. Whereas this here is like, as much as we're telling us, this is why the characters care, it's more to us as well. Like, we care more because we, as an audience, we've also seen this story for a year. We're not divorced from this. We can see the logical side of it, but we care about these characters as well.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like the roots of a tree in a weird way, where Kira is obviously our main Bajoran character, right? So she is the trunk, effectively, of us caring about Bajor. And then you have these other recurring characters that are kind of the roots coming out. And then maybe much less down the line, but Sisko just pointing out that some of these red shirts have, are getting married to Bajorans is sort of the tips of the roots, where it's so it's kind of spread down. There's layers now to how connected they all are to these people. And it's, and how we're connected to all these people. So I think it's it's very effective to sort of build that up, and I think it'll probably do the show a lot of benefits going forward. So, yeah, good set of episodes to kick off the season.
Yeah, I have nothing to worry about going forward right now.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. So, let's look ahead to next time. Obviously, we'll be back with Next Generation come next review. But when we come back to Deep Space Nine, we'll be looking at episode 4, which is called Invasive Procedures. Here's the description on IMDb. A jealous Trill who had waited his entire life to receive a symbiont with a T at the end. I guess that's the word for the host?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But never did, decides to steal Dax's. Okay. All right. Definitely a more standalone sounding story.
It is. I can see that being. I can see a lot of potential in that.
Yeah. Does that mean that Dax, and it's not really Dax obviously, but does it mean the body's walking around and interacting with people, and is it effectively kind of a body swap episode?
I would assume it doesn't actually get that far.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't think it's going to get as far as actually separating the two of them. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. You may be right. Yeah. Maybe we'll get as far as Dax is on a table ready to be Frankensteined on, and then people come.
Yeah, for some reason, maybe this is from absolutely nothing, and just I've projected this somehow. But my assumption was they couldn't be separated until like death. But I don't know.
I mean, that does sound right. I'm just wondering if, like, because you're hot swapping another Trill, maybe it works differently than just removing the Trill entirely.
Maybe.
Like a heart transplant, you can't live without a heart, but if they're doing a transplant, they have to. You'd have to swap them.
Come out at some point. Yeah.
So maybe it's like that.
Yeah, could be.
Oh dear. They should use that term when they're doing operations like that. Hot swapping. We're hot swapping the kidney.
Some doctors definitely do.
Well, the nerdy ones that have grown up with video games and shit.
Which, at this point now, is probably a reasonable amount of them.
Probably. Probably you play video games to keep their dexterity up, you know? Keep their fingers and reflexes nimble. Makes a lot of sense.
Hey, it works wonders.
I love the idea of, like, a surgeon goes home and whips out Operation and plays with the family. And he's really good.
Just play a Twitch shooter. Just to keep the reflexes in.
I just like the idea of them playing Operation, just the idea that the family always gets beat because they're an actual surgeon. It's like, yeah, well, I've got a PhD in this shit. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, or alternatively, they keep getting zapped and like, how are your patients not all dead? Like, what?
I hated that game. I hated playing Operation.
I hated it as well. It was never good. No. It was a gimmicky game, but
that buzz, I can hear it now. It haunts me.
Anywho, that has been our thoughts on this Deep Space Nine. Let us know what you think of this one in the comments, and of course you can support all the content and help keep all the reviews coming over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble. There's bonuses for all the movie podcasts we do over at MailFuzz Movies, and there's an exclusive monthly review of Columbo that I started doing just recently. So go check it all out and see if you're interested in supporting all the content. But that is us, so thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and in this episode, Odo shapeshifted into a literal tripwire and tripped some fools.